Hello, it's Sonia here with The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today is Wednesday, and that means it's the Stitch of the Week. So I thought for today we would do another Tunisian stitch tutorial, so Tunisian crochet. It's been a hot minute since I've done one, so why don't we do one today? So for this, I'm going to be using my eye hook or 5.5 millimeter. To do this stitch pattern, you do not need to use a Tunisian hook. As you can see, I just have a standard regular crochet hook, a straight one. Even if you have the hooks with the curved handle, you could certainly use one of those to practice the stitch. Just work up a little bit of a swatch. And if you've never done Tunisian before, I can put a link of the playlist of Tunisian that introduces you to the stitch and how it works. If you can do regular crochet, you can certainly do Tunisian crochet. So again, I'm using my eye hook or 5.5 millimeter. And again, if you've never done Tunisian crochet and wondering what I mean by different hooks, Tunisian hooks are generally longer. So they either might look like this and just be, like 6 more inches longer, or they'll have like a cord attached to it. And I do prefer the cord. So if you decide that you want to get into Tunisian crochet, I do recommend the hooks that have the cords on them than just the long metal ones, because I find the long metal ones to be extremely painful to, I don't know, they hurt my hands really badly, so I really don't like those. Alright, so to do this stitch, you don't have to work a certain amount of chains. You can just work as many chains as you would like. So I'm just going to chain 8 for this one. Alright, so I thought I would pop in my darker background since this yarn's a little bit lighter. It's actually pink. It looks white, I think, in the camera, but it is pink. So I have my 8 chains. So rule of thumb with Tunisian, your first stitch is actually already on your loop. So we're going to be pulling up loops across on our hook here. So I always like to work in the back bump. So in my second chain from my hook, I'm working in that back bump. And I'm just going to pull up a loop. I'm not working this loop off, so I already have 2 stitches. So however many chains you worked is however many loops you're going to have on your hook when you're done. And Tunisian is always worked in 2 parts. So you have your forward pass, which is what we're doing right now, and you'll have your return pass, and that's when you're working your loops off your hook. So you can think of it as part 1, part 2, part A, part B, however you want to think of it. Alright, so I have our loops on our hook, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I chained 8, and I have 8 loops on my hook. So now we're going to work these guys off and many Tunisian projects are worked this way. The first row is usually the setup row, and this is like a standard setup row. So we're going to yarn over, pull through 1 loop, and then yarn over and continue to pull through 2 loops. Which again is pretty standard for Tunisian crochet. Sometimes it is a little bit different, but most times it's like this. Alright, so we have worked our first row. So now we are going to work our second row. And I am not sure what this stitch is called. I will try to research it and find out, or I'll just name it. To me it looks kind of like the stitches are staggered, but I don't think it's called the staggered stitch. Probably not. But I will try to find it. I have seen it before. I'll see what it actually called, if it actually has a name. Alright, so we are going to, instead of working in the first bar, so if you have done Tunisian crochet, usually you work in, you see these stitches are called bars usually, and you would insert your hook in that bar to work the stitch. But we're not going to do that. We're actually going to be working around this chain. So in Tunisian crochet, if you look closely at it, it looks like there's a chain that runs through, and I don't know if you can see it real well, but there we go. So it kind of looks like a chain. So you're going to be inserting your hook in that space there around the chain. So I'm going to take my hook and insert it right there, and I'm going to pull up a loop. And I'm going to go on the next one, pull up a loop, and I will want to have 8 loops in my hook, and I'm just going to keep going across. So right under that chain, working around that, there we go. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, and now we're at our last stitch. In my last stitch, I always like to work a knit stitch. So it looks like a little chain there, And I just like to pop my hook in there, work a Tunisian knit stitch. And again, I can put links for all those stitches. I just find that it gives you a neater and cleaner edge. That's just a personal preference. All right, so then you're going to work these stitches off just like you normally would. Yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. So it's kind of just working a basic Tunisian simple stitch, but you're just kind of placing the hook, I need to get more yarn, in a, you know, different spot. So as you can see, when you work it off, you've got your bars there. And the yarn I'm using is just basic worsted weight number 4. It's probably Red Heart. It was gifted to me and the label is missing, but it feels like just standard, you know, that workhorse yarn. So we have row 2, and I find an easy way to count your Tunisian rows. If you turn it on its side, it looks like a top of a regular crochet stitch row. So 1, 2. Very easy to count. So now we're going to work row 3, and you're just going to repeat what you did for row 2. So right here in this space, around that chain that runs through, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and just keep going across. And then if you kind of see, it kind of staggers the stitches. And it gives it a very nice solid fabric, just something a little bit different. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then my last stitch will be the knit stitch, 8. And then we'll just work these guys off in regular Tunisian return pass here. And my yarn is super squeaky, if you can hear that lovely acrylic. And it's really wound tight in the skein too, which is not helping. All right, so there we can start seeing the staggered effect there. And so why don't we repeat for row 4. So we have our 8 stitches, and then we'll just work these guys off. And there you go. So I will work a few more rows. So just remember, you're going to skip this first space here, and you'll jump into the next one. So here's that first bar. So you'll just skip that, work around in that space, and pull up your loop there. So I'll keep going, working a few more rows so you can see how it looks, and I will meet you back. All right, so I've worked 8 rows of this stitch, so you can see how they're all kind of staggered. But I think it looks really nice. Now, as you can see, this is definitely a curler. She likes to curl, and Tunisian is notorious for curling. Now, if you want to stop the curling, a good way to stop the curling is to pop in some purl stitches. So if you wanted to, let's say you wanted to use the stitch for a scarf or something, you know, I would have some purl stitches on the bottom, some purl stitches on the side to kind of help with that curling. And again, I can have a link of, you know, how to do Tunisian purl, but this is another Tunisian stitch, and Tunisian is really fun. So if you've never done it before, you know, I encourage you to explore and, you know, check out what else is available to do in Tunisian crochet, because it's a really fun technique. So I hope you enjoyed this stitch of the week, and I thank you so much for watching.